The house was steeped in an eerie stillness, a bone-chilling solitude that sent shivers down your spine. Within this opulent mansion, two broken hearts were unknowingly orbiting each other, like twin thunderstorms on the verge of collision. Little did they know that in just a fleeting moment, everything would be forever altered. Ava relentlessly searched for that pivotal moment, the instant that had truly shifted everything. Could it have been the furtive glances Owen cast her way whenever he thought she wasn't looking? Or perhaps it was the way his voice took on an unusually tender tone when he spoke her name, like a sweet, hushed whisper? Or maybe, just maybe, it was a sudden flutter in her heart, the exhilarating rush she felt whenever she heard the rhythmic whir of his wheelchair wheels echoing down the long, empty hallways, stirring a sense of anticipation she couldn't quite explain. Whatever it was, the invisible wall that separated them was slowly cracking, bit by bit, in a silence that was both suffocating and fraught with danger. One evening, after a particularly grueling therapy session, Owen's body was so tense it felt as though it might shatter, like a statue carved from stone. The muscles in his back seized up, unleashing a searing pain that shot straight to his brain, spreading like a jolt of electricity. As Ava helped him back to his room, he grimaced, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrest of his wheelchair, the veins in his hands bulging. "Are you okay?" she asked urgently, stepping closer to him, her eyes filled with concern, as if she feared he might collapse at any moment. "I'm fine," he mumbled, his voice laced with his characteristic stubbornness, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, catching the light. But in truth, he was anything but fine. It felt like a fire was raging inside him. Without a moment's hesitation, Ava placed her small hands on his broad shoulders, beginning to knead the knotted muscles along his spine, trying to ease the tormenting pain. Owen stiffened beneath her unexpected touch, every muscle in his body seemingly coiling tighter, like a violin string stretched to its breaking point. She instinctively recoiled, fearing she had overstepped. But then he let out a soft exhale, leaning into her hands as if finding a solid anchor. "Harder," he said, his voice raspy, laced with fatigue, like a silent plea. Ava did as he asked, her fingers carefully working to relieve the tension in each muscle, like an artist meticulously crafting a masterpiece. She sensed a hidden strength beneath his skin, a wellspring of energy he always seemed to conceal behind his icy exterior, like a volcano smoldering beneath a layer of ice. They both fell silent. The room, too, became still, broken only by their soft breathing and the gentle hum of the air conditioner, creating an atmosphere that was almost unbearably tense. When she finished massaging him, Owen tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes locking onto hers, as if trying to see straight through to her soul. Their faces were just inches apart, close enough to feel each other's warm breath. "Thank you," he said, his voice deep and husky, almost a whisper, like a confession. Ava's heart pounded in her chest, a painful throb that felt as if it might burst free. She quickly stepped back, her cheeks burning, as if a fire had been lit beneath her skin. "You're welcome, sir," she whispered, her voice trembling, trying to mask the turmoil that was rising within her, like a fledgling trying to fly from its nest. He gazed at her for a long moment, his eyes seeming to delve into her very core, as if searching for something hidden, before silently wheeling himself away, leaving behind a void that ached with emptiness. But that night, both of them tossed and turned, unable to find sleep, their minds filled with their own private thoughts. The next day, Ava was jolted awake by a text message from Mrs. Carter. Owen wanted her to accompany him on a business trip to Abuja. It wasn't a request. It was an order, like a thunderclap. Flustered and apprehensive, Ava quickly packed a small suitcase and joined him on the private jet that was waiting for them that afternoon. Feeling like a puppet on a string, she sat in silence across from him during the entire flight, stealing glances at him when she thought he wasn't looking, like a cat stalking a mouse. He was dressed in a crisp white suit, his beard neatly trimmed, his watch sparkling under the cabin lights, exuding power and wealth. He was every inch the powerful CEO, except for the wheelchair that stood between them like an invisible wall, a stark reminder of a painful reality. During the flight, he barely spoke, only glancing at her once or twice with an inscrutable expression, as if he was contemplating something. When they landed, They were driven straight to one of the most luxurious hotels in the heart of Abuja, like stepping into an extravagant dream. Owen had booked the presidential suite, an entire floor just for them, like a private kingdom. Ava's room was connected to his through a common living area, creating a space that was both private and intimate. When the hotel staff had finished settling them in, Owen called her aside, his voice filled with authority. "You will be by my side during all the meetings," he said, his tone brooking no argument, like an irrefutable command. "You are my wife. Act accordingly, and don't disappoint me." Ava nodded quickly, like a program machine. "Yes, sir." And for the first time, the corner of Owen's mouth curved into a faint smile, fleeting as a breeze, like a rare ray of sunshine on a cold winter's day. "Don't call me sir anymore," he said softly, his voice tinged with something gentler, like a request. "My name is Owen. Say it. Go on." Ava's lips trembled slightly, as if trying to overcome an invisible barrier. "Owen." He nodded in satisfaction, his dark eyes lingering on her lips for a moment too long, before turning away, like a silent invitation. The next 2 days passed in a whirlwind of business meetings, charity galas, and private conferences, leaving her reeling. Ava sat silently beside him throughout it all, her presence both demure and elegant, like an orchid exuding a subtle fragrance. To the outside world, they looked like a perfect power couple, a billionaire and his stylish young wife, a picture painted with meticulous detail. But behind closed doors, the tension between them was escalating, growing heavier with each passing hour, like a time bomb ticking down. Every time Ava helped him with his jacket, every time she leaned in to adjust his wheelchair pedals, every time their hands brushed, pretending that nothing was happening became increasingly difficult, like a farcical charade. One night, after a long charity gala, they returned to their suite exhausted, like puppets with their strings cut. Ava excused herself to her room, her heart pounding in her chest, threatening to leap out beyond her control. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, trying to steady her breathing, as if she had just run a marathon. But before she could move, a soft knock echoed, shattering the silence. She froze, rooted to the spot. "Ava?" Owen's deep voice called through the door, tinged with expectation, like a silent supplication. Slowly, she opened the door, as if opening a portal to another world. He sat there in his wheelchair, looking more tired than she had ever seen him, like a warrior returning from battle. And there was something else, too, something raw, unshielded, like his true self emerging. "Come in," he said simply, but his eyes pleaded a silent invitation. Without hesitation, Ava stepped into the living room, like a moth drawn to a flame. Owen reached out, his fingers gently brushing against her wrist, a feather-light touch. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through her body, leaving her numb, as if by magic. "I've been pretending," he said, his voice low and husky like a confession, a burden lifted. "Pretending I didn't want you?" Ava's breath caught in her throat. She felt as if she couldn't breathe, as if someone was strangling her. "Are you tired of pretending?" she whispered, her voice trembling, laced with faint dread, like a fledgling fearing a storm. Owen's eyes darkened, filled with a sea of emotions impossible to decipher. "Yes." Before she could think, before she could retreat, he pulled her down onto his lap, an action that seemed unstoppable. Their lips met in a searing, desperate kiss, like a wildfire erupting, consuming every barrier. A kiss that erased all the careful distances they had painstakingly built between them, like a release from shackles. Ava clung to his shoulders, feeling the solid strength beneath his suit jacket, as if finding a solid ground. Owen's arms tightened around her waist, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss until she thought she might shatter, like a perfect fusion. When he finally released her, they were both gasping for breath, their foreheads pressed together, like people who had just completed a long journey. "I'm not as crippled as they think," he whispered against her lips, like an assertion, a declaration of war against fate. "And tonight, I'm going to show you everything." And Ava, the poor, neglected, unwanted girl, had no idea how ready she was to be consumed, like a parched land longing for rain. Owen lifted her into his arms, like a hero. He hesitated for not even a fraction of a second. He did not struggle. With one powerful movement, He scooped Ava off his lap and carried her toward the large bed in the suite's master bedroom, like a king carrying his queen. Ava clung to him, her heart pounding so hard she could barely think, like a drum beating incessantly. All she could feel was the heat radiating from his body, the strength hidden beneath the facade of weakness he had worn for so long, like a tiger hiding in sheep's clothing. He gently laid her on the bed, standing over her like a deity presiding. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, as if admiring a work of art. Ava, breathless, lay still beneath his gaze, like a hunted deer. His eyes were no longer cold. They burned with raw hunger, with an intensity that made her feel naked, as if every layer of defense had been stripped away, leaving her with nothing to hide. "You're mine now," he said, his voice low, almost dangerous yet possessive, like a declaration of ownership. He bent down, claiming her mouth again in a kiss unlike any they had shared before, a frenzied kiss, more brutal, deeper, more consuming, like a whirlwind devouring everything. Ava moaned into the kiss, her hands sliding up his chest, feeling the powerful muscles beneath his vest, as if finding incredible strength. He was supposed to be weak. He was supposed to be crippled. But there was nothing weak about the man who was claiming her at that moment. He was the embodiment of power and control. Owen's hand slid beneath the loose fabric of her dress, sending shivers of desire through her body, like an electric current. He moved slowly at first, giving her time to stop him if she wanted to, like one final courtesy. But she didn't. She didn't want to. She wanted this. She wanted him. She wanted to feel desired, wanted like a burning thirst. Little by little, he undressed her, kissing every inch of exposed skin, worshipping her with his lips, his hands, his body, like a sacred ritual. As he stepped back to remove his own clothes, Ava gasped, as if a blast of cold air had hit her. There were scars, faded scars, running along his hip, remnants from the accident that had changed his life, like markings from a battle. But they didn't make him less handsome. Quite the opposite. They made him more real, a strong survivor, a testament to unwavering will. Ava reached out, her fingers gently tracing the scars, as if touching his wounded soul. Owen flinched at first, but didn't pull away, didn't flinch. Instead, he gently took her wrist and pressed a kiss to the palm of her hand, like a silent thank you. Then he joined her on the bed, and there were no more barriers between them, like two final pieces of puzzle. Their bodies met with a desperate hunger, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a lifetime, like two rivers joining. Years of loneliness and longing exploded in a wave of heat and need, like a great eruption. Ava gasped as Owen touched her, guided her, made her feel things she never imagined possible, like a fantastic miracle. Every kiss, every touch, every thrust, like the rhythms of a love song. It was like wildfire licking through her veins, burning away all the fear, the sadness, the emptiness she had carried for so long, like purification. And when he finally claimed her completely, deeply, she cried out his name, like a prayer, a call for salvation. Her nails dug into his back, her body trembling with overwhelming pleasure, like a ship tossed on the high seas. He moved inside her with a power and passion that left no doubt, like a wild beast. Owen Hale was not crippled. He was a man in every sense of the word, a real man, strong, dominant, and completely, utterly hers, with no replacement. The long night passed, filled with whispered names, shared moans, and the creaking of the bed as they claimed each other again and again, as if they were lost souls finding each other, two kindred spirits. By the time they collapsed into each other's arms, exhausted and satisfied, the first rays of dawn were peeking through the curtains, signaling a new day, like a promise of a bright future. Owen held her close, his hand drawing lazy circles on her back, as if trying to hold her to him forever, never to leave. "You're not going anywhere," he mumbled into her hair like a vow, a solemn pledge. Ava didn't respond. She couldn't. She was too overwhelmed, too dazed, too confused to know what to say. Because as she lay there, entwined in his arms, a terrifying thought swirled through her mind, like a haunting specter. How could a man who loved her so fiercely still be trapped in a wheelchair? And deep down, another thought, even more terrifying, began to creep in like a poisonous snake. Owen Hale was hiding something, something big, a dark secret. And now she was bound to him, heart, body, and soul, with no turning back, like prey ensnared in a trap. The next morning, Ava woke up tangled in the bedsheets, her body aching in places she didn't know could ache, a testament to the night's frenzy. Owen was still beside her, his arm lying heavily across her waist, his breathing deep and even, like a child in peaceful sleep. In the morning light, he looked serene, younger, almost vulnerable, devoid of the cold demeanor she was so used to seeing, like another person. Unlike the cold, cruel man she had married, who always kept his distance from her, like an icy wall. Ava lay still, staring up at the ceiling, her mind reeling, tried to piece together the fragments of the night before, like a difficult jigsaw puzzle. Everything that had happened between them last night felt like a dream, an incredible dream, a wild, breathless, dangerous, yet sweet dream, like candy laced with poison. But reality came crashing down quickly, pulling her back to earth, not allowing her to keep dreaming. Owen had moved too strongly, too easily, not struggling, no signs of limitation, like a completely healthy person. He wasn't supposed to be able to move like that, not supposed to be able to do the things he had done. There was something wrong here. Ava bit her lip hard, trying to silence the swirling thoughts in her head, not allowing them to drive her insane. She carefully shifted out of his embrace, sliding out of the bed without waking him, like a thief. She needed air, needed some space to think clearly, needed some quiet. She needed answers, explanations for all these confusing things, like someone lost in darkness. She wrapped a robe around herself and walked barefoot into the living room, feeling like she was walking on a minefield, with one false step, and everything could explode. Her mind was racing, not knowing what to believe anymore, like a ship lost at sea. Had he been lying about everything? Was the wheelchair just a prop, part of some elaborate game? If so, why? And what did that mean for her, for their marriage? She went to the large window, looking out at the Abuja skyline, hugging herself tightly, feeling more alone than ever, like an oasis in the desert. Behind her, she heard the software wheelchair wheels, like a silent accusation, a painful reminder. She whirled around, facing the truth, with no way to hide. Owen sat there, fully awake, his piercing gaze following her intently, as if trying to read her mind, like a wolf stalking its prey. Running away already? He asked in a raw, never hiding his sarcasm. It was like a sharp blade. Ava swallowed hard, her heart pounding painfully, threatening to burst from her chest, utterly out of control. "I need you to understand," she said softly, trying to maintain her composure, not letting her emotions overwhelm her. The corners of Owen's mouth tightened. He didn't like this line of questioning. He knew everything was about to unravel. He maneuvered his wheelchair closer, stopping just a few feet away, as if preparing for a battle with no quarter given. "You want the truth?" he asked, his voice icy like frozen water. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes pleading a silent prayer. He looked at her for a long moment, the muscles in his jaw clenching, as if he was wrestling with himself, unsure of what to say. Then he sighed heavily and leaned back in his chair, seemingly having made a decision, a significant one. "I was crippled," he said, his voice heavy, laced with bitterness, like an unhealed wound. "After the accident, I completely lost the use of my legs for months, unable to move, unable to do anything. I was despondent." Ava listened, her chest constricting, feeling a sharp pang of pain in her heart, sympathy for him. "But I'm not patient," he continued, his voice hardening, like a warrior refusing to yield. "I threw money at the best surgeons, the best therapists, the top specialists. I spared no expense. I forced myself through grueling rehabilitation programs, exercises that were excruciatingly painful, refusing to let myself give up. I worked until I could stand, walk, even run if I wanted to. I wouldn't allow myself to fall. I won." Her eyes widened. She couldn't believe what she was hearing, like a miracle. "You can walk?" "Not perfectly," he said, his voice taking on a sour note, like an admission. "Some days are harder than others. The pain torments me, but I can. I'm no longer bound to that wheelchair. I'm free." Ava's mind was reeling. She felt like she was lost in a maze, unable to find her way out. Then why? She swallowed hard, tried to regain her voice like someone drowning. Why the wheelchair? Why did you hide this from me? Owen's eyes darkened, like a storm rolling in, inevitable. Because I needed to know, he said softly, his voice full of anguish like a confession. Who would stay? Who would still want me when I had nothing to offer but the shattered pieces of my life? I wanted to know who loved me genuinely, not for my money or status. I wanted to find true love. Ava's hands trembled at her sides. She felt like she had just been slapped in the face. Reeling, "You tested me," she said, her voice hollow, devoid of emotion like an unfeeling doll. Owen didn't deny it. He just looked at her in silence, his eyes filled with regret, like an apology. "My former fiancée left me the day the doctor said I might never walk again," he said bitterly, the painful memory still etched deeply in his mind, like a scar that couldn't be erased. She didn't even hesitate, not a word of comfort. She was ruthless. She packed her bags and left as if I were a burden she was finally free of. I was no longer the man she wanted. I had lost everything. Ava closed her eyes for a moment, trying to suppress the tears that were threatening to spill over, like a dam about to burst. "When your father pleaded with me to help," he said, "I agreed, but I demanded the marriage because I wanted to see if anyone, could love me without expecting the man I used to be. I wanted to find real love, unconditional love." Ava opened her eyes, tears welling up. She felt a deep sense of empathy for him, understanding his pain. "And did you find what you were looking for?" she whispered, her voice full of anticipation. "Hope." Owen reached out, taking her trembling hand, holding it tightly in his, like a promise. "I never expected to find you," he said, his voice sincere from the depths of his heart. "A girl with nothing, no greed, no expectations, only kindness, loyalty, and a generous heart. You're an angel." He squeezed her hand, as if begging for forgiveness, like an act of contrition. "You make me want to be a better man, Ava," he said roughly, his voice choked with emotion, like a confession. "Not out of pity, not to show off, but because you deserve better than this. You deserve real love. You deserve happiness." Tears streamed down her cheeks. She couldn't stop them anymore, like a tidal wave. "But you lied to me," she said, her voice thick with emotion, feeling like her heart had just been squeezed by someone like a betrayal. "You tricked me into this marriage under false pretenses. I trusted you. I gave you my heart." Owen's face contorted with guilt. He knew he had inflicted a deep wound on her, a scar that might never heal. "I know," he said, "and if you want to leave, I won't stop you. You have a choice. You have the right to be happy." He wheeled himself backward, giving her space, giving her time to think, giving her the freedom to decide. Ava stared at him, her heart breaking all over again. She didn't know what to do. Her life was a mess. She had been betrayed too many times in her life, and this time it was by the man she loved, the man she trusted, her father, the world, and now Owen, the only man who had made her feel seen, desired, had also deceived her, pushing her into a double bind. But deep down in her heart, a small voice whispered, "He chose me. He could have had anyone, but he chose me. He loves me." Ava angrily wiped away her tears. She didn't want to let her emotions control her. "No," she finally said, her voice trembling but firm. She had made a decision. "I'm not leaving. I'm not giving up." Owen looked up sharply, astonishment shining in his eyes. He hadn't expected her to make this decision. "I don't know what this is," she continued, her voice a little shaky, but full of determination. "But I'm tired of running. I don't want to run anymore. I want something that's my own, something solid, even if it's complicated, even if it's broken." She stepped closer to him, cupping his face in her small hands, as if comforting a child. "You're not broken, Owen," she said passionately, her eyes blazing. "You're alive. You're fighting. You've overcome everything. That's more than most people ever do." Owen closed his eyes, burying himself in her gentle touch, like a man starved for affection, longing to be loved and accepted. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with something raw, desperate, and breathtakingly beautiful. Love. A genuine love without barriers, without pretense, without masks, only sincerity. He wrapped his arms tightly around her waist, pulling her onto his lap, giving her a kiss, an all-consuming one with everything he had, everything he was, like a silent thank you. And this time, when Ava returned his kiss, it wasn't out of obligation or confusion, but out of choice. The choice to stay, to fight, to love, and to build a future with him. Returning to Lagos this time, everything felt different, as if she had become a different person. Ava sat quietly beside Owen in the back seat of the sleek black SUV, her hand resting lightly on his, an intimate and natural gesture. There was no longer fear in her chest, but instead a quiet, steady strength that she never knew she possessed. She had found strength within herself. She was no longer the girl who was rejected by her family as a burden, someone worthless. She was Ava Hale now, and she wouldn't let anyone forget it. She would prove to them how wrong they were. The news spread like wildfire, unstoppable. Within days, whispers began circulating among the elite, causing an uproar. Owen Hale had fully recovered. A miracle had occurred. He could walk again. He was back. He had regained control of his empire, and he was stronger than ever, a wolf returning more fierce after being wounded. This news struck the Bennett family like a thunderbolt, shattering what they had painstakingly built. And the calls from Grace to Ava started immediately. She called her sister relentlessly. Initially, there were feigned inquiries about her well-being, which quickly turned desperate when Ava refused to pick up the phone. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to make amends. Chloe posted saccharine statuses on social media, pretending to always support her sister's marriage, trying to garner attention. Even Marcus sent a carefully crafted letter, filled with false concern and veiled apologies, blatant lies. Ava glanced through them and threw them in the trash without hesitation. She no longer cared about them. She owed them nothing. They had destroyed everything with their own hands. They had betrayed her to save themselves, and now they would have to watch her rise up strong, standing on top. It was Owen who suggested the idea of hosting a grand opening for his latest hotel project, Nova Towers, and personally inviting the Bennett family to attend. He wanted to show them what they had missed. Ava initially hesitated. She didn't want to see them again, but when she saw the cold look in Owen's eyes, she understood. This wasn't just a celebration. It was a declaration of war. This was a battle, and he was giving her the power to lead this assault, to take revenge with her own hands. On the day of the event, Ava stood in front of the large mirror in the bedroom, carefully adjusting the magnificent red dress, a silk dress that hugged her body, accentuating her exquisite curves, making everyone turn their heads to look. Beside Owen, Ava was like a goddess, proud and powerful. Owen entered the room, his elegant black suit tailored to perfection, adding to his attractive handsomeness, hiding an irresistible danger. He walked over to her, no longer in his familiar wheelchair, and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, whispering in her ear, "You're going to take everyone's breath away." Ava smiled softly, replying, "That's the point." The event was organized with utmost grandeur. Successful entrepreneurs, powerful politicians, famous stars, all gathered together, vying to shake hands with Owen, hoping to win over the man who had overcome so many difficulties and challenges to become stronger than ever. And then, Ava entered the magnificent hall, hand in hand with Owen. The vast space suddenly fell into absolute silence. All eyes turned to them. Everyone was shocked and stunned, speechless. At the far end of the room, Emma, Angela, and Chloe stood alone, confused. Chloe couldn't believe her eyes when she saw Ava, radiant and unbelievably beautiful, completely different from the poor girl they had rejected. Angela squeezed Marcus's hand tightly, the smile on her face becoming strained and stiff. Owen led Ava straight towards those traitors. Each footstep echoed like a triumphal drumbeat, signaling a resounding victory. As they got closer, Amelia stammered, Ava, you look healthy." Ernest forced a fake smile. "We're so proud of you, honey." Owen's face was expressionless. His voice was as cold as ice. "How ridiculous. When you sold her like selling an object, were you proud?" The people around began to stir, everyone straining their ears to hear every word. Ethan's face turned as white as paper. I was just trying to do what was best for the family. Abigail coldly interrupted. You were only doing what was best for yourself. He turned to Marcus. And you heartlessly let it happen. Marcus lowered his head, extremely ashamed, not daring to look at anyone. Ava stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp as a dagger. I survived because of the fact that you abandoned me, she declared loudly, her voice echoing throughout the hall. And now, I will live a brilliant life without you. Chloe was about to say something, but Ava didn't even glance at her. She no longer needed their approval. She had herself. She had Owen. She had a bright future waiting ahead. Owen placed his proud hand on her waist and led her away, leaving the Bennett family standing frozen in the hall, humiliated and ashamed, not knowing where to hide their faces. As they walked away, applause thundered throughout the hall like thunder, not because of the confrontation just now, but because of the admiration for the powerful couple who had risen from the ashes to reach the pinnacle of glory. Ava felt a tingle in the corner of her eye, but this time it wasn't tears of sadness. It was tears of victory, of freedom, of the recognition she had longed for. That night, returned to the villa, Owen pulled her into his arms in the bedroom, gently kissing her forehead, whispering, You defeated them without exerting the slightest effort. His voice was full of pride. Ava smiled, leaning her head against his chest. You gave me the opportunity. He raised her chin, his eyes darkening, full of seriousness. No, he said, you were already strong, Ava. You just needed someone to see it. And he had seen her. He had always seen her, from the beginning, and now. There was nothing between them but truth and love, a love that had been forged through fire, becoming strong and immortal. Several weeks after that important event, life at the Hale Villa gradually returned to normal, a more beautiful trajectory, filled with light and joy. There were no more walls separating Ava and Owen. There were no more lies, no more hidden secrets. They were together naturally, like two puzzle pieces that had finally found each other after years of being lost. Every morning, Ava often woke up in Owen's warm embrace, his breath on her neck, carrying his familiar masculine scent. Sometimes they talked for hours before getting out of bed, sharing dreams, deep-seated fears, and plans for a bright future. Sometimes they said nothing, just quietly touched each other, exchanged sweet kisses, and immersed themselves in a sea of passionate, endless love. The man known to the world for his ruthlessness and coldness had now become warm, gentle, teasing her and protecting her with all his heart and soul. As for Ava, the girl who was once shy and invisible had blossomed under the radiant sun of his love, like a bud that was finally blooming, showing off its hidden beauty. She began to go back to school, initially learning online to get acquainted, then learning directly in class. With Owen's full support, she pursued fashion design, a dream she had cherished for a long time, but never dared pursue because of inferiority and self-doubt. You were born to shine, Owen told her one night, as he watched her sketch designs on the balcony, his eyes filled with boundless pride. And you were born to protect me, Ava whispered in response. She put down her sketchbook and snuggled into his arms, seeking peace and protection. They made love that night under the starry sky, slowly, unhurriedly, exchanging unspoken but extremely sacred promises, engraved deep in their hearts. Promises of an eternal love that would overcome all the trials and tribulations of life. One Sunday afternoon, as they were relaxing by the pool, Ava leaned her head on Owen's shoulder. He stirred slightly, smiling. I have a gift for you, he said, taking out a small box from his pocket. Ava sat up straight, blinking in surprise, curiously looking at the box. Inside was an exquisite gold bracelet, a simple but extremely elegant design, with small letters engraved on it. His choice, his heart, his home. Tears welled up in her eyes as Owen gently fastened the bracelet on her wrist, his fingers trembling with emotion. You were never a bargain to me, he said, his voice full of sincerity and affection. You are my salvation, the light that guides me in the darkness. Ava choked up, unable to speak. She leaned forward, giving him a light, lingering kiss, containing all her love and gratitude. I love you, she whispered on his lips, her voice trembling with happiness. Owen's arms tightened around her, as if wanting to embrace the whole world. "And I love you," he replied passionately, as if he couldn't live without her for a second. "Until the last breath of my life." Many months passed, the seasons changed, and so did they. They became stronger, bolder, together building not only a marriage but also a lasting partnership, together overcoming all the storms of life. The Ava Designs fashion brand launched with resounding success, receiving the love and support of a wide range of customers, with Owen's silent support in the background, ensuring she got the attention she deserved, but never letting anyone know it was him. He wanted her to shine on her own with her talent and efforts, and she did, making him extremely proud. On one rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled across the Lego sky, Ava found herself staring at a pregnancy test in the bathroom, her heart pounding in her chest. Positive. She sat there for a long moment, stunned, unable to believe her eyes. Her hand went to her stomach, a faint awareness of the life forming within. A tiny being growing inside her, a new beginning, a fresh hope. When she told Owen that evening, his reaction wasn't what she expected, but it moved her to tears. He didn't shout with joy like some men might. He didn't cry with happiness either. He simply knelt before her, on the legs he fought so hard to regain after his accident, and placed a reverent kiss on her stomach, full of love and respect. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion, "for giving me everything I never dared to dream of in this life." Ava cupped his face in her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks, mingling with the raindrops still clinging to his hair. "We built this together," she replied, her voice trembling with happiness and gratitude. Together. And they had. Two broken people who had found each other in the ruins of their lives, who had loved each other with all their hearts and souls to heal deep wounds, who had written a love story as beautiful as a dream. Between them now, there were no more masks. Only truth, only love, only forever. Ava made peace with her family. She forgave them, despite the cruelty and bitterness they had inflicted upon her over the years. She told herself that it was what her mother would have wanted, that her mother wouldn't want her to live in hatred and resentment. So she forgave them, freeing herself from the burdens in her heart. She helped revitalize her father's business, helping him through a difficult time. And that was it. That was all she owed them for raising her. That was what her heart told her to do. Even though her father had witnessed her suffering throughout the years, she still loved him. She still yearned for his love and comfort, like a child always longing to be in their parents' arms. And she still hoped that one day, maybe just one day, they could all sit together as one big happy family, forgetting the misunderstandings and pain of the past, leaving only love and affection. But not today and not tomorrow. Maybe it would take more time for all the wounds to heal, for all the hearts to open to each other. Thank you for following our story. As thunder cracked and boomed across the Lego sky, Ava found herself in the bathroom, eyes glued to the pregnancy test she held. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Positive. She just sat there for what felt like forever, completely stunned. It was like her brain couldn't quite process the information. Slowly, hesitantly, she placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the faintest whisper of a new life taking root within her. A tiny, brand-new person was beginning to grow inside her, a fresh start, a beacon of hope. When she finally told Owen that evening, his reaction was nothing like she'd imagined, yet it moved her more deeply than she could have possibly expressed. He didn't erupt in shouts of joy the way she'd seen some guys do in movies. He didn't even cry, overwhelmed with happiness. Instead, he simply knelt down in front of her, supported himself on those legs he fought so relentlessly to recover after his accident, and pressed a tender, reverent kiss onto her belly, a kiss full of love, respect, and a deep sense of wonder. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, barely audible, "for giving me everything I never even dared to dream of in this life." Ava gently cupped his face in her hands, her own tears flowing freely, mingling with the lingering raindrops still caught in his hair. "We built this together," she whispered back, her voice trembling with a mixture of joy and profound gratitude. Together. And they had. They were two broken souls who had somehow managed to find each other amidst the wreckage of their lives. They had loved each other with an intensity that had healed their deepest wounds, crafting a love story as beautiful and improbable as a waking dream. Now, between them, there were no more pretenses, no more carefully constructed facades. There was only truth, only love, only the promise of forever. Ava finally found a way to make peace with her family. She extended forgiveness to them, despite the years of cruelty and bitterness they had inflicted upon her. She reasoned that it was what her mother would have wanted for her. Her mother wouldn't want her to carry the heavy burden of hatred and resentment. And so, she released them from her anger, freeing herself from the weight that had been dragging her down for so long. She even helped to revitalize her father's struggling business, guiding him through a particularly challenging period. And with that, she felt it was done. That was all she owed them for the simple act of raising her. It was what her heart had urged her to do, even though her father had stood by and watched her suffer for so many years. A part of her still loved him. She still yearned for his love and approval, the way a child instinctively craves the comfort of their parents' embrace. And she held on to the hope that one day, just maybe one day, they could all come together as one big, happy family, setting aside the misunderstandings and pain of the past, leaving only love, affection, and a sense of belonging. But not today, and probably not tomorrow. Perhaps it would take a significant amount of time for all the old wounds to fully heal, for all their hearts to truly open up to one another. Thank you for following our story.